Hello everyone, it is first impressions time. Yes, the season has only been out for 2 days, but with some of the genius commentary that I have been seeing, you would think that it has been out for 2 months now. Wow, Datto, the sass already? We're 17 seconds in. Let's start with the story. Osiris is back. Anna Bray is back. Clovis Bray is back. Morozov is back. Sort of. We are finally making a return to the Bray family after a very long absence. What's the story this time? Well, when we last left Rasputin, he was turned into an engram because things was bad. And now he is starting to degrade as a result of being in this engram that he's in, but Anna Bray cannot get him out. She's trying to put him into an exo body. It's just not working. But Clovis Bray can do it, and even though Anna doesn't want to go to Clovis Bray, we end up getting his help because he's the only option. The Hive and Fallen are attacking old Rasputin bunkers on the behalf of the main baddies because the baddies were like, oh, this is some good stuff, right? We should get in on all this Rasputin stuff. And then we're all like, hey, could you, I don't know, maybe not. And that's how the story starts. Xivu Arath wants the Warsats, all these satellites, and the tech because it's all really, really good and powerful. Stories in the final season of an expansion cycle tend to be pretty good and pretty on point as they will eventually lead into a new expansion. I've never been a huge Rasputin dude, but I was very glad to see Clovis Bray back in the game and actually relevant again. Part of me is excited to see this restoration of Rasputin and wanting to see if he becomes more than this just very nebulous thing that he's always felt like he's kind of been. He's just always been this like, oh, I'm the most powerful piece of technology ever. I save everyone, but I also do whatever the hell I want. What do I do exactly? No one really knows for sure. And I've just never really gotten interested based on those vibes. The last time we saw Clovis and Anna, and I guess Elsie, was around Beyond Light, where Elsie just bails because of the history with her and Clovis, and not really much has happened since then. I'm guessing the season is going to potentially feature some more character development, backstory on Clovis and Anna. Maybe Elsie shows up too. I don't know. Maybe there's a reunion there or something. Clovis is helping out pretty much simply to preserve his own work, but you know, if humanity goes under, then he doesn't really have much going on. So that's pretty much what's happening. Definitely interested to see how this all ends up connecting in the end with the beginning of Lightfall, if Xivu Arath is going to play a bigger role in the next expansion cycle, if maybe it'll wait until the final shape, not really too sure. I'm sure the lore nerds can explain some more if they would like. Interested to see what Rasputin ends up being as well. Does he go into the exo body? Does he get restored into how he used to be? Is he going to actually be any different? Is he going to be this same nebulous thing that he's always been? I think it would kind of be a shame if he just went back to being how he used to be, as I personally thought he was annoyingly aloof in that state, but, you know, who knows. Either way, it all feels more connected than last season, so I'm going to feel a bit more invested. I found it interesting that Morozov says something along the lines of, with Nezarec out of the way, as if most people ever knew that Nezarec was going to be a big deal last season in the first place. Like, yeah, he's old news now, dodge that bullet. Anyway, here's new info for the season. There's also some stuff with House Salvation helping out, like Xivu Arath, but Mara thinks House Salvation, which is Aramis's house, by the way, is being punished or forced to help rather than doing it of their own free will, perhaps as a result of last season's failure. Again, lore nerds, help me out. Let's move on to gameplay. We have the Heist Battleground activity, 3-player activity, which involves going into bunkers and clearing out dudes. New gameplay mechanic here is the Seraph Tower, where you need to break line of sight or you're gonna get zapped, which I thought was pretty neat, especially in the operation mission. Wouldn't be surprised to see this mechanic used in the future, although I feel like I've said this before and mechanics don't end up getting used. I could just be gaslighting myself there, I honestly forget. But it's a fun little mechanic, you know, always nice to see those pop up. The activity itself isn't anything revolutionary, nothing we haven't seen before. But something that I thought was interesting is that Bungie is using a modifier on the actual playlist, not just the individual ones that you select, but the playlist, where enemies are always going to be 5 levels above you, no matter what, which keeps the activity somewhat difficult forever. And man, does this feel really good, like tuning wise. It makes me feel like I'm not doing the most insane overkill like I usually am. And by making enemies a little more beefy, they stick around longer. It doesn't feel like I'm fighting as aggressively to secure my own kills, not yet anyway. I want this to be the new normal. It's just enough to keep you on your toes, and death is a possibility again. It feels good. The combat feels really good here. Like, good job, combat team, or whatever the name of your team is, or you get it. Nice job. This feels really good. But this does beg the question, is Bungie working on a new style of investment outside of leveling? Is this an experiment for some kind of thing? It's certainly possible. If we're always 5 levels below, then that kind of tacks on another point on the why the hell are we still having to level every season side of things. Bungie certainly knows that people are upset about having to continually level over and over again just to get back to where we were, so we'll see what ends up happening with this experiment as we go into the penultimate expansion of the first saga of the game. The seasonal exotic is this submachine gun that lets you float in the air. Should probably look up the name of it, as I have forgotten it. Something with an M. The Manticore, that's it. It's called the Manticore. You shoot it while you're on the ground to build up some juice for your meter, which is called anti-grav repulsor, but that's too long to keep saying, so meter it is. And then you can shoot the gun while you're in the air, and you're going to stay there hovering as long as you have some juice, although you do have a bit of control over your movement as well. And damage dealt in the air gets a pretty significant damage buff. I could see this thing surprising some people in PvP. I think people have said it's got way more stats compared to other SMGs of its kind, so that's something. PvE-wise, I'm not expecting this to break the game in any significant way, because being in the air in the way that this gun puts you in the air is generally not the greatest in endgame content. You become a giant target for all of the enemies. There's no cover. And you need to be up close to use this. You know, it's an SMG. You're not going to be sniping with this thing. There's a small amount of build opportunity here with Hunters and Warlocks. The Catalyst gives damage resistance while you're in the air, and I'm sure some people are going to play around with Wings of Sacred Dawn with this SMG. Previous seasons have had huge sections on the revamped subclasses, but we don't have one of those for this season. And on the YouTube side of things, I'm quite relieved about that. It means I don't need to rush out a video on the subject while trying to play for 20 to 30 hours in 2 days. So let's talk some seasonal mods instead. First off, why did Unstoppable Hand Cannon get such a big delay nerf? Like, the time to proc a shot is way longer than usual. I didn't really feel like that was a huge problem. And maybe it's, maybe it's just unintended, but, for now, all right. Scouts, bows, pulses, autos, SMGs, pretty fine with that weapon lineup, although bows and scouts got changed around with the usual mod they get. Bows are anti-barrier and scouts are overload. In-flight compensator seems to be Bungie's way of telling people, okay, airborne effectiveness, you're not into it. Here's a mod to help with that for now. We're working on something. Just shut up. Here's your mod, which I'm not exactly complaining about. As I mentioned recently, I'm not the biggest fan of the airborne effectiveness system. I can't hit my fancy air snipes anymore. That makes me sad. Then we got these stat mods. Bungie is experimenting with people being able to mod stats into slots that don't normally get stats. 5 mobility for 3 energy, 5 resilience for 4 energy. I'm not feeling it here. Would I rather have a half a click of resilience or a potential 25% damage reduction in a specific thing? Getting to 100 resilience is not terribly hard. People going after endgame content probably don't struggle getting to 100 resilience. And this can only go in the chest slot. It's a nice little flex option, I suppose. Maybe you're super close and chest armor has some of the least expensive mods. So I get it, you throw it in an artifice slot, okay. But at first glance, I don't see many people racing to use these mods. The same for mobility and leg armor. Leg armor has scavenger. That's way too important, and only hunters are going to care about the mobility anyway. Conceptually, being able to get stats from the seasonal artifact, I'm interested. I think for this first try, not enough incentive. Some values are off. We'll see what they come up with in future seasons. Unstoppable Grenade Launcher is back with a pretty neutered version of Breach and Clear. It's literally called Weakened Clear. Little double entendre there. I see you. I see you. Okay, you're getting a raise. Hitting an important target, aka a boss or a champion, or breaking a shield reloads stowed weapons and tags the enemy with the weaken effect, which is 15%. You know, it's still a free weaken effect. It ain't too bad. Unstoppable Grenade Launcher being 7 energy. Wow, 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 wow. Pretty expensive. We'll see if it ends up being worth it in the long run. I have actually been using it because of Unstoppable Hand Cannon being slow, and you know, Grenade Launcher is fine. It's expensive, I get it, but it's still okay. Your only other options are, again, Hand Cannon or an exotic that gives Unstoppable, which is what? Bastion and Leviathan's Breath, and a couple of melees in the seasonal artifact, I think. So, you know, it's expensive, but it's tempting. Stasis is seeing some action this season. Grenades and melees getting some anti-champion capabilities. That's pretty neat. Advanced Scout also seems like a brain-dead easy call to make at 1 cost, although I don't know the exact bonus damage right now. Passive Aggressive Guard. I thought it was going to be both swords and glaives. It's just glaives. Not sure how interested I am in that just yet. I've lived without using glaives this whole time. I'm pretty sure I can continue that streak, although they now work with certain melee-based exotics. So, okay, a little more tempting. The talk of the town is probably going to be Monochromatic Maestro. Deal ability damage, you get weapon damage. You deal weapon damage, you get ability damage. You just got to match the elements. I think this has some pretty strong potential. Titans, I'm looking at you. Touch of Thunder, Anarchy, Unstoppable GL. I mean, come on. Or think of any other Arc exotic. You can't do Weakened Clear at the same time, though. But also, that makes sense, obviously. That'd be way too strong. I think there's going to be a lot of fun to be had with this mod. I'm very interested to see what people come up with. The only unfortunate thing is that in endgame stuff, you often have to use varying elements in your kits, especially when solo. But speaking of solo, if you're a solo player, congrats, you just get a flat damage bonus for the next 3 months with Solo Operative. And finally, Lucent Finisher, pretty easy selection to make in endgame content. It's free heavy ammo. Moments of Triumph launched with the season. That's pretty cool. If you've been active this year, a good chunk of this should be done, assuming you play group content. We also had ranked PvP launch. I played pretty terribly, and I managed to get to Silver 2 on my placement matches. I think Gold 3 is the highest you can rank out of your placement matches, so I guess we'll see where I manage to end up in the rankings. 3v3 Rift. It didn't end up being as bad as I was anticipating, although it did pop up a bit more often than I wanted it to. I was pretty skeptical about it. It doesn't play too bad. It's just some of the maps that Rift uses are so big for 3v3. And also Rift goes to 5 points. Probably could have kept that at 3. Although I don't think I played a game that even got to 4 anyway. I have not played enough otherwise to really contribute much to this conversation at the moment, but I will be trying to rank up during the season. And wouldn't you know it, there's an update to this. Bungie has already acknowledged and adjusted the amount of Rift popping up in this playlist. Cool! Grandmasters this season are Insight Terminus, Scarlet Keep, Birthplace of the Vile, Corrupted, Glassway, and Warden of Nothing. Very glad to see Scarlet Keep back. Always been a fan of that one. It's been a little while since we've seen it. Could have done without Glassway. Again, but yeah, alright. Not the worst batch of strikes. No exotic armor launched with this season. Usually we have something right at the start. These could be coming out later, and if they do, then fine. If they don't, then that's a little disappointing. But as a Titan, haven't really been the most excited about stuff like Second Chance or Cannon Brace anyway, so I've basically felt like Titans almost haven't been getting new exotics anyway. So let's just get right to it now. Overall thoughts. Oh, negativity in the community, quite high. I get that bringing back elements from Season 10, a season widely considered one of the lowest points in Destiny 2, at this moment in time where people are burning out on the seasonal model, is probably somewhat of a contributing factor to the negativity. Do I think this season is going to be any worse than the previous, I don't know, 6? No. Do I think it's going to be a whole lot better? That's unlikely. Season 13 through 18 have done one thing incredibly well, and that is maintaining a pretty standard consistency. We know exactly what we're going to get, and Bungie delivers that exact amount without much wiggle room in either direction. But I can't help but feel like people's expectations keep increasing every single season despite Bungie doing quite literally nothing to alter expectations. Season 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, all the same quality, layout, everything. Maybe Season 13 was a bit better. Maybe you had some things you liked more than others, but their consistency is pretty set in stone. So after 6 seasons of very consistent content, I don't know why people are expecting more. Like, I certainly wasn't. I know what the seasonal model is and can deliver. Bungie has showed us for a year and a half now, a little more than that. And man, if this is not the most defeated I have felt like in quite some time. Everything's bad. Nothing's good. Nothing's allowed to be good. Even if it is, who cares? It's also bad. I know people are tired of the seasonal model, but Bungie has not given even an inkling that anything was going to change in Season 19 to remedy that. Feedback has come to a peak, I'd say end of Season 17, start of 18, maybe mid-18 is when it really hit the absolute. It was growing in earlier seasons, but to the point where it could have been reasonably ignored, as it felt like it was mainly endgame players, super enthusiasts complaining about it. You also got to see it from Bungie's end. They've had this content delivery model for years now, and people are starting to revolt. Okay, need to make changes. But completely changing your entire content delivery model is going to take a ton of time, not to mention the business end of such a major shift if they shifted away from seasonal drops. You need to address the main issues, then design a solution for it, and with an issue this large, that is a significant undertaking. Season 19 was probably locked and loaded by the time Season 16 was ending, which is where feedback really started to ramp up. So I'm not surprised that there hasn't been much of a reaction to the feedback. My expectations have been that if something is going to happen, it'll happen during the Lightfall era. Hell, Season 20 is probably too dialed in to make changes, which means Season 21 at the earliest is when we might see anything. Game development takes a very long time. Bungie is likely 6 to 9 months ahead of the current game at any given moment. Some stuff is likely a year or even farther into the future. Expectations gotta stay limited for the time being. People are expecting the world for $10, and I hate to keep bringing that up and using the whole comparison of media versus how much money you're spending to consume that media, but like, it's still how I feel about the situation. Expectations gotta get tempered. At the same time, Bungie, you gotta say something. Say something. Acknowledge this. Acknowledge the community regarding the seasonal model. Give people some insight into anything that's happening. We know Lightfall is probably going to be a banger, but there's almost no confidence otherwise. The things that are still good, the fun feeling of combat and music and audio and all those other things, we're not talking about that. Y'all do great work on so many aspects of the game. It's the seasonal loops and the core gameplay loops that gotta be addressed. Say something. Say something already. Get another State of Destiny 2 post out there. I know it takes months to approve, but man, just start talking about something. This is what I wrote on the first day of the season. On the second day, Bungie chimed in, or rather, game director Joe Blackburn. I will read what he said on Twitter verbatim. Quote, "Heard loud and clear on the feedback with our current seasonal backbones. The team is excited to put some more creative risk in seasonal progressions, but there will be some time before the feedback catches up with the dev cycle. Coming up next is Lightfall in Season 20. While Guardian Ranks and Neomuna Destination Pursuits are going to shake things up, on the seasonal pursuit side, our major focus is reducing complexity and improving the synergy between your seasonal pursuits and the rest of the game. Season 21 is at the halfway mark of development, and the team is currently looking at ways to differentiate progression aside from having a more novel activity setup in the works. Finally, as the last bugs on Season 20 and Lightfall are wrapping up, we're hardening our 2023 plans and are working to make improvements in this space every season next year. There's still novelty, thematic variety, and new ways to progress your character coming to Destiny over the next several months. But while we work to use this feedback in our future releases, I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that your words are not falling on deaf ears. End quote. This was posted about 12 hours after what I literally just said before me reading this, so I ended up being pretty accurate. Season 21 is the earliest people should expect to see any of these comments being addressed. Maybe Season 22, 23 getting the full brunt of that feedback when it comes to new seasonal content, loops, and models, and all this kind of stuff. That is 6, that is 9, that is 12 months. First off, thank you for finally acknowledging this. It's better to hear something like this than nothing at all. Are people still mad with this? Yeah, of course. Too little too late for some people. Some people are just fed up no matter what. Why did it take until this point? Until things were acknowledged? I don't know. There were certainly remnants of conversation that were happening up until Season 18, and I would have liked to have seen a bit of a faster reaction to some feedback around the Witch Queen times. But, hey, I'm not in charge of the game. It's another waiting game. It's another gotta wait and see, and people are just tired of that. I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of saying it. But I think something that tends to get lost on people is people are not forcing you to play. If you just want to play what you think is the good stuff and then leave, do that. If you don't want to play the same seasonal model for another 6 to 9 months, don't. Do something else and come back when things are better. I'll let you know. Again, I always do. That's all I really have, though, which I know is not a great answer. But it is all I have to offer while we wait for revisions to show up. This season is another season so far. It will likely end up being another season in a list of seasons. 13 through 18 have had remarkable consistency. I'm guessing we'll be able to throw 19 onto that list as well. If you're on the fence about buying or playing, just keep that in mind. This season is very similar to the previous 6. It is a similar cadence to all of those previous seasons. If you are not up for that, then it might be best to just wait for Lightfall. Those are my first impressions of the season. We'll see if things get any better. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.